All right, what's up, guys? Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. We recorded this last night. So here we go. What's up, Jack? How we doing?
Doing great, doing great. Happy holidays.
Thanks, man. So the Bears played well. They did. They came up a little short against the Vikings. They've just had a tough run at it ever since that Hail Mary. Just looks like they're not going to recover. They're going to play the Lions. It's a big number. Do with it what you want. The Giants, Cowboys later this afternoon. Do with it what you want. I can't believe the Cowboys beat the Commanders, but they did. Cowboys probably still think they have a shot, so keep that in mind when you're betting. But I don't have strong opinions. I know you don't either. The Dolphins Packers, that should be interesting. I'm going to dive into it a little bit more, but I'm really leading Miami here. I like the way the Dolphins are playing, but what I wanted to talk about with you, and hopefully you can educate me and we can find some value here on these college football games because it is absolutely chaotic. I think it's what they wanted. The college football committee, all the interesting stuff going on, all the chaos. So let's just get into it, right? They have a lot of games tomorrow. Tonight, the relevance is what we got: Memphis, Tulane. Is that a game that you have any opinion on or any relevance here to the college football playoff?
Yeah, there's definitely some relevance. Tulane is one of those teams that's currently on the outside looking in. They're going to be playing for a conference championship, and depending on how the Big 12 shakes out and how the Mountain West shakes out, Tulane can find themselves in the playoff pretty easily right now, just because the weakness of those kind of bottom three conferences is definitely there. And so they're ranked right now. They definitely could find themselves potentially in that 11 or 12 spot, or maybe depending on how things shake out, if there's a lot of carnage, actually hosting a bye or taking a bye. Yeah. So super interesting there.
So Memphis, on the other hand, they can play for the conference championship, but they can't make the tournament, right?
Likely no. Tulane has a very, very possible shot. They need some help, but they definitely have a chance. There's definitely something to play for Tulane. I'd lean there. I don't know if I'm going to put some actual money on it, but I'd lean Tulane.
All right. So then all the games tomorrow on Friday. So Tulane, the number one thing they need, I guess the number one thing most teams need here is for Boise State to slip up. So correct. Boise State, they have to win the last two games, right? It starts with this one against Oregon State. Then they're going to have to win the Mountain West Championship the following week. What's the scouting report? Oregon State's 5-6. They're bowl eligible if they win the game, so they're going to play 1,000%. Do they have a shot to keep it close? I didn't even look at the number. What's it? 19 points. Gee, that feels like too many. Just thinking that Oregon State has something to play for.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon State's a good team. Boise State will either play UNLV or Colorado State in the Mountain West Championship. Colorado State actually lost in either single or double overtime to Oregon State earlier this year. Just an interesting tidbit there. But I would say that's definitely not a team to overlook. Boise State is very strong, obviously running the ball and offensively. And Oregon State's defense is nothing to scoff at, I would say. I probably will be laying the points there with Oregon State.
So Boise State has to win the last two. That puts them in. All right. That's simple. Big 12, a little bit more complicated. The only relevant game in the Big 12 is Colorado on Friday. The other games are on Saturday. So Colorado has to win. They're going to need some help. Oklahoma State, they just completely lost it this year, right?
Yeah. Oklahoma State started hot, beat Arkansas, played Kansas State really close. They looked really good, looked the part early, and then the wheels just came off. And unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast sometimes. And the Big 12 is kind of a dog-eat-dog conference. And Oklahoma State has been the hunted more than the hunter, I would say. And that's very unfortunate.
So what's Colorado need exactly? They win, assuming they beat Oklahoma State. They're 16-point favorites. What do they need on Saturday to happen?
Yeah, so currently, based on my understanding, it's a four-way tie: BYU, Iowa State, Arizona State, and Colorado. Colorado will need two of those teams to lose in order to get in. So two out of the three to lose. Iowa State has a tough test against Kansas State, so that's something that we could look at. I'm pretty sure the other two games, one of those teams plays Cincinnati, I want to say. I think either BYU or Arizona State plays Cincinnati, I want to say. But one of those other two teams has to lose, and Colorado's in.
So, all right, let's clean it up. Arizona State first. They're against Arizona. It is Kansas State, Iowa State, and then Houston, BYU. So
Houston, BYU. Gotcha.
let's start with that one. Let's go bottom up. So Houston's at BYU. What's that? 13 points. Houston's not very good. BYU's lost the last 2 games. Assume BYU gets this one.
Yeah, Houston's best win was against TCU, who's another, I want to say they're 7-4. They're kind of on the outside looking in at the Big 12 championship. That's Houston's best win of the year. They're going to have to play a perfect football game, and going to Provo is tough. I'm taking the Cougars there.
And BYU needs help, right? Because Iowa State and Arizona State, they're the ones that control their own destiny.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah. I mean, the tiebreaker system is weird. I think there's a couple interesting tiebreaker scenarios where one of those teams doesn't get in, depending on how the other conference games shake out. Just because, like, obviously, when there's a multiple team tiebreaker, not all the teams have played each other. It comes down to common opponent win percentage. And those common opponents still play this week. And so, depending on how that shakes out, it depends.
Got it. So I believe Arizona State and Iowa State have the best chance to get it as long as they win. Is that
Yeah,
a fair
it's
thing?
like in the high 90%. If they win, they're in.
Got it. So with that in mind, Arizona State's at Arizona. Thought Arizona State was supposed to suck this year, and Arizona was supposed to be good. Seems like it's the reverse. Arizona's 4-7. Rivalry game, one of the biggest ones. It's an 8.5-point spread. Is Arizona's quarterback still playing, that Noah guy or whatever his name is?
I'm not 100% sure. I do know Arizona has the best receiver in the country, and you can't count them out. They were a top 25 team coming in, and those are the teams to worry about because they had the talent, they had the skill returning, and they were projected to be highly rated, highly ranked. That's a game that I'd be wary of. It's always rivalry games. Rivalry week, you want to tend to take the underdogs just because teams are going to play above their skill level and above how they've played the rest of the year.
I agree with that. Iowa State looks like they have the toughest matchup. They're getting Kansas State. They're only a 2.5-point favorite. Thoughts on that one?
That one's pretty much a pick 'em. Kansas State is the same thing. Came in as one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to win the Big 12, and I would say that's a very tough matchup for Iowa State. Iowa State's had a lot of close calls this year. Beat Iowa pretty handily, but they've definitely had their fair share of games that ended up as a coin flip that they were on the right side of. So I'd be wary of that one. I would call that a coin flip. Take whoever your gut intends.
So Colorado has the worst chance to get in out of the 4. BYU's in 3rd place. They need the most to happen. And Arizona State and Iowa State are in the driver's seat. Wow, just crazy. And there's only going to be one team out of the Big 12 no matter what. They could all win this week, right? There's no scenario where Big 12, because does any Big 12 team have a big win over another conference? I don't think they do.
Oklahoma State beating Arkansas is probably the best win, and Kansas. But I mean, yeah, Arkansas is not great. They're bowl eligible this year. Again, picked to be bottom of the barrel SEC. Beat Tennessee. They're not bad. And then Kansas State beat Tulane, and that's one of the better wins for the conference as well.
Yeah, but both of those teams aren't one of those 4 teams, right?
So, no, exactly. Yeah, it's super interesting. BYU beat SMU. I guess that's probably another good win.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah. But I mean, that was early. That was back in BYU or in SMU's can't decide which quarterback to play scenario. So
all right, so let's go to the SEC. On Friday, Ole Miss has to win, but again, it's a rivalry game, but they're favored by 26. Assume they beat Mississippi State here. What Ole Miss's path? Do they have a path just besides everybody losing? Like, what's Ole Miss's path, you think, to the playoffs?
I don't. Their path requires South Carolina to beat Clemson. Based on the rankings we saw this week, Clemson is ahead of both Alabama and Ole Miss. And so they need a very interesting situation. They need Clemson to lose to South Carolina, but they need South Carolina to not jump them in the process, because South Carolina has 3 losses as well. One of them was a game at Alabama, which, I mean, depending on what you look at, they should have won. LSU was another one of their other losses that they probably should have won. And then their 3rd loss was to Ole Miss, obviously. And so South Carolina is in a very interesting spot where they can keep Alabama and Ole Miss out of the playoff if Clemson beats them. Or if they win, they're kind of playing this risky game about trying to jump 2 other teams that they lost to. So it's a very interesting situation here. But I mean, if I'm Ole Miss, I'm tuning into that South Carolina Clemson game.
So Ole Miss minus 26 sounds like a good bet because they're probably going to win by 90. They want to win by as many as possible, right?
Yeah, but I mean, realistically, they don't control anything. I think that they probably do. I don't know how ready Lane Kiffin will have them to play. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to take that number just because they might be counting themselves out already.
What about Georgia? Your dogs are Georgia Tech's pretty good this year. 7-4. It's a 19.5-point spread. Georgia really doesn't have to win this game, actually, right? They just have to win the SEC. They have to win 1 out of 2. Is that fair way? Can they lose the SEC champion? Can they beat Georgia Tech, lose the SEC championship, and still make it?
I'm going to say yes. Again, comes down to that. I think that Clemson South Carolina game is the most important game for the playoff. Because if Clemson wins and Georgia ends up losing the SEC championship game, you come down to that head-to-head.
Clemson, Georgia.
And Georgia won by 31. And so I don't think you can put Clemson in over Georgia there. However, if South Carolina wins and Georgia ends up losing that SEC championship game, it comes down to an argument of Alabama and Ole Miss over Georgia. And both of those teams beat Georgia head-to-head. So, again, if I'm Georgia, I'm rooting for Clemson. And if I'm Alabama or Ole Miss, I'm rooting for South Carolina. So that is the most important game of this weekend.
Does Georgia Tech have a chance in this game?
I would say, yeah. They're good. They care a lot more about this game than Georgia does, and you've seen that the past few years, especially last year. It was a very close game, and they're a better team than they were last year. And you could argue Georgia isn't as consistent as they were last year. So that's a game that I'd be wary of. I will not be betting Georgia minus 19.5. I could understand arguments to take the other way.
So you'll have bets out for Friday's games. I'm not going to go through every single game on the board right now. We don't have a ton of time. So I'm going to move to Saturday, so more relevant football games for the playoff, because there's a handful of other good games on Friday, just, good college football games. But anyway, Ohio State, it's automatically Ohio State, Oregon, or is that not necessarily a lock for the Big Ten, right? Because Ohio State, they still have to beat Michigan in order to get to the Big Ten championship, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Ohio State controls their own destiny. If they lose and Penn State wins, Penn State is in. If Penn State and Ohio State lose, then it's Indiana.
Can Michigan hang? It's a 21-point spread. Michigan, I haven't watched enough Michigan to have an opinion here. Ohio State just they look like they always do, right? Fast, athletic, a bunch of guys that are going to the NFL. They seem to be rolling, and it's a 21-point spread. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, they're a well-oiled machine. Ohio State is, again, they are rolling. And, I mean, at the end of the day, that Oregon game, they lost because Will Howard made a bonehead play and didn't go down in time. Tried to get 5-10 extra yards to shorten the field goal, and the clock ran out. So you got to go back to that Oregon game. Those two teams are neck and neck with each other. The game was in Autzen, in Eugene, and the only reason Oregon won is, barring a missed field goal, is because Ohio State had a bonehead clock management situation. I think Ohio State is head and shoulders above pretty much everybody else in the Big Ten. I think they probably beat Oregon in a Big Ten championship rematch.
And Oregon automatically is in that, even though if they lose to Washington, not the greatest team in the world this year, 6-5, an expected drop off. Oregon, they're 19-point favorites. They don't seem to be covering these big spreads. What do you think about Oregon this weekend?
Yeah, I think they're in a very significant look ahead spot towards that Big Ten championship. I do think that's not very many points. And again, it is a rivalry game. That one really could go either way. I think Oregon wins by double digits. It's just a matter of if it's 14 or 21.
So Indiana benefits from the schedule. And as long as they beat Purdue, which they're 29-point favorites, they are automatically in, correct?
Yeah, correct. There's not really a world where they win and don't get in.
Same for Notre Dame, or can Notre Dame lose this week and still make it? They're at USC, 7.5-point spread. What's Notre Dame's pathway? Can they lose and still make it, or do they have to win?
Again, that comes down to a lot of interesting arguments.
Not only it comes down to South Carolina, I think Clemson game.
Kind of. It really does. It's going to come down to whoever wins that game is going to be competing for a spot looking in. And if Notre Dame loses, it comes down to, does that resume stack up? And I don't think Notre Dame has the wins to compete with a Clemson or a 3-loss SEC.
Notre Dame and Penn State better just win this week. Don't make it interesting. And Notre Dame, Penn State, Indiana, don't make anybody think about it, right? Because they just didn't beat anybody. Penn State's playing Maryland, Notre Dame's playing USC, Indiana's playing Purdue. You lose that last game, and then we're going to look back.
It becomes multiple question marks there, and it leaves the door open for getting multiple 3-loss SEC teams in.
I'd rather have a big I mean, you got to play people. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me. That's how I look at it. So Notre Dame USC handicapped that game 7.5 points. Notre Dame they rolled Army last week. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been high on Notre Dame. I'm rolling with USC. They look good last week. Miller Moss started off the year hot, and I think Jaden Maeva is the QB now, and he looked really good last week. And so that's a team that I don't want to play because it's a team that has been underperforming, and teams that have underperformed throughout most of the year tend to figure it out in rivalry games. So if I'm Notre Dame, I'm worried because if Notre Dame loses 1 to a 5 or 6 loss USC team and 1 to the number 6 or 7 team in the MAC, it's hard to put them ahead and justify that when their best wins are against military academies and you have 3-loss Alabama sitting right there on the outside looking in.
Agreed. No arguments, no lies detected on that one. So Maryland, I don't, you know what? Baltimore Ravens, Baltimore Orioles, but when Maryland checked out of the ACC and went to the Big Ten, I feel like a lot of me checked out. So I don't know much about Maryland football. I know that Penn State is a 24.5-point favorite. Feel free to give anybody that's listening that's a Maryland football fan any hope. I don't like Penn State, so I just hope they lose. They're the easiest team not to like, whatever they're doing up there. Unless you're a Penn State alum. I just don't know anything about Penn State. Does Maryland have a shot? And do you think Penn State's any good?
Yeah, it's kind of funny you say that. I actually definitely considered going to Penn State, both for undergrad and potential grad school. I'm very happy that I didn't, just kind of seeing how they act and how they behave out there. I bet on Maryland last week, and so and obviously that didn't pan out very well. So, I mean, I could see Penn State blowing them out of the water here. I think James Franklin is one of those coaches that will kind of realize we need to make a statement here, and I think that they will.
Yeah, Penn State has to win. Indiana has to win. That's simple. Notre Dame doesn't have to win, but they better win. I think that's a fair way of putting it. Let's go to the ACC, and then we'll finish up with the South Carolina Clemson game since you're making that we're getting to a presidential, whatever the county is, it's supposed to decide. It's Anyway, California, SMU. So just to simplify it, SMU and Miami have to win. As long as they win, they're going to go to the ACC championship and play each other. Clemson's not even playing an ACC team, so technically Clemson could lose and still kind of sneak in there if one of those two teams loses. But they're both pretty big favorites. Miami's got a tough game. They're at Syracuse. Let's start with SMU, though. They're home against California. That's going to be Saturday afternoon. So California's playing, an early time zone for them. I watched California play really well against Miami and then blow that game. That's one of the 5-10 best games of the year so far. Talk to me about this one. SMU should roll them. Will they?
Cal had an emotional game last week. SMU is red hot. SMU by 100. Yeah, that will be one of my bets. SMU has everything to prove. Cal became bowl eligible last week at home and had an emotional win. I think SMU wins 56-7.
Wow. Miami at Syracuse. Do you feel the same way there? Is Syracuse cooked? Miami's a 11-point favorite. 67.5 points. Wow. Is Kyle Ford the quarterback for Syracuse, right?
Yeah, and if I'm correct, he is leading the country in passing yards right now. I kind of like that over. I think this is kind of a 37-34 game. I think this gets close to 70 or above 70.
And you think Syracuse keeps it close?
I think Syracuse keeps it close. Miami's defense, as the great Nick Saban said, can't stop shit through a tin horn. So I expect Syracuse to light them up and keep this one close.
All right. Did we do every single game before South Carolina Clemson of relevance, or did I miss anything?
A couple other rivalries. The Iron Bowl should be really interesting this year. Auburn coming off a great win. Alabama coming off a demoralizing loss. That game is going to be crazy. Going to be must-see TV, even if neither of these teams are really playing for anything. Auburn, although actually I will correct myself, is playing for bowl eligibility. So that is something to focus on. I'm pretty sure the game is in Tuscaloosa. We will see how that goes. Should be a bloodbath.
Got it. All right, here we go. South Carolina, Clemson. Everybody cares about this game. It's a noon on Saturday. I know one thing. Both of these teams have to win because every other game I asked you about, you circled back to this one. So instead of going over the relevance of it, because I think you've touched on that, handicap the game for us because Clemson's a 2.5-point favorite. It's 49.5 points is the total. Yeah, how's it gonna play out?
Yeah, this is one of those games where I don't really pay attention to where the game is being played because they're so close to each other. There's not really going to be a home field advantage. I think it'll probably be kind of a 60-40 split, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be some sort of atmosphere like if you see Auburn going to LSU or something like that. Like this is going to be who is better on the field. And SC's losses, I think, don't really define them as much. They have had 2 really close losses to 2 really good teams, and then they had their quarterback hurt for the other loss. And so I think I'm kind of on the SC train here. I think Clemson has been a little overrated. They've kind of had a cakewalk of a schedule. I think I'm team SC here.
Got it. So South Carolina over Clemson. You'll have all the bets out. Dolphins Packers tonight. Yeah, I like Tua. I'm gonna look at it more. The Packers. I don't know. What am I doing? I want to bet against Pat. I'm gonna say that to myself like at 10 o'clock at night. Like this is a great idea, Ryan. It's Thanksgiving, and you took a warm weather team bet against the Packers at night. So as I'm saying this out loud, I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do. We'll see. But the first 2 games, I can't get excited about whatsoever. But anything can happen. So as soon as you take the lines on the money line because you just want to guarantee yourself money, or you put them in a 10-point teaser, what'll happen is the Commanders will lose to the Cowboys outright, or the Titans will beat the Texans. You called that one. I don't know how you pulled that one out of your house. Every time I bet the Titans, they lose, but Texans
the Texans are going the wrong direction. So
Texans are going to go the wrong direction, but then I feel like they'll get hot at the very end because they just don't. They have no sense of urgency because the stupid Colts can't get anything together, and the Jaguars are freaking dumpster fire. So, yeah. Anyway, we got that game tonight. Thanks for the conversation, the explanation. I'll see you. I don't know exactly when. We'll do one soon here. Get ready for college basketball. I want to do once the holidays are finished. Kind of what are we about like 4 or 5 games into the season. Really talk a lot of college hoops with you. And sweet, man. Cool. Well, I hope everybody has a great day. And yeah, I'll be here in the morning. And that's it. Have a good weekend, man.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving.
See you, buddy.